The marketplace on Kepler 442b buzzed with alien voices and the clatter of exotic goods being traded. Sarah Chen moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, dressed in the plain clothes of a colonial merchant. To any observer, she appeared to be just another human settler trying to make a living on the frontier world. She paused at a Zephyrian fruit vendor's stall, examining the purple crystalline produce with genuine interest. The vendor, a tall being with translucent skin and 4 arms, chittered something in broken galactic common about the fruit's sweetness. Sarah smiled and nodded, counting out the proper credits from her worn pouch. What none of the aliens around her knew was that Sarah Chen held 3 advanced degrees in xenobiology, spoke 7 alien languages fluently, and had spent the last 5 years conducting covert research on behalf of the Human Colonial Authority. Her unassuming appearance was carefully cultivated. In a galaxy where humans were still considered a minor species, being underestimated was often an advantage. The Valtharian Empire had controlled this sector for over 3 centuries. Their ships patrolled the trade routes, their administrators governed the colony worlds, and their soldiers maintained order with an iron fist. Humans had been granted limited settlement rights only 50 years ago, and only after demonstrating their usefulness as miners, farmers, and laborers. Sarah had been documenting Valtharian agricultural techniques, secretly recording how they managed to grow crops on worlds that should have been barren. The information would be invaluable for human expansion efforts. She was careful, methodical, and had never drawn attention to herself. That changed when the Imperial Guard surrounded her. The Valtharians moved with military precision, their crimson armor gleaming under the marketplace's artificial suns. Citizens scattered as the soldiers formed a perimeter around Sarah's position. She looked up from the fruit vendor's stall to find herself staring into the compound eyes of Captain Thexfor, the local garrison commander. Sarah Chen, by order of Imperial Command. "You are under arrest for espionage against the Valtharian Empire," the captain announced, his translator rendering his words into crisp galactic common. Sarah's heart raced, but her expression remained calm. Years of training kicked in. "I think there's been some mistake, Captain. I'm just a merchant." The mistake, Thexfor clicked his mandibles, was thinking we wouldn't notice your activities. You've been observed documenting restricted agricultural installations. You've been collecting samples from Imperial facilities. You are a spy. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the guards moved to restrain her. Sarah didn't resist. Resistance would only confirm their suspicions and likely result in her immediate execution. Instead, she allowed them to bind her hands with energy shackles that hummed with alien technology. "I demand to contact the Human Colonial Authority," she said firmly. "You will contact no one," Thexfor replied. "You will be transported to the Imperial Detention Facility on Velthus Prime for interrogation and trial. The Empire deals swiftly with spies." As they escorted her through the marketplace, Sarah caught glimpses of other humans in the crowd. Their faces showed fear and confusion. If the Empire was arresting humans for espionage, it could mean a crackdown on all human activities in the sector. The Imperial transport ship was a sleek, predatory vessel that reflected the Valtharian aesthetic of function over form. Sarah was placed in a detention cell that was barely large enough for her to lie down. The walls were smooth metal, and the only light came from bioluminescent strips that cast an eerie blue glow. Hours passed before she was brought before Captain Thexfor for preliminary questioning. The interrogation room was sterile and cold, with Sarah strapped to a chair facing the imposing Valtharian officer. "Your real name is Sarah Chen, age 32, born on Terra," Thexfor began, reading from a datapad. "You arrived on Kepler 442b 5 years ago, claiming to be a merchant specializing in agricultural goods. However, our investigation has revealed sophisticated surveillance equipment among your possessions and evidence of unauthorized sampling from Imperial facilities." Sarah maintained her composure. "I collect samples to ensure the quality of goods I purchase. As for surveillance equipment, I'm not sure what you're referring to." "Do not insult my intelligence, human." Thexfor's voice carried a dangerous edge. "We know what you are. The question is who you're working for and what information you've already transmitted." "I'm working for myself. I buy and sell agricultural products to support the human colonies." The captain studied her for a long moment. "Perhaps extended interrogation will loosen your tongue. The facilities on Velthus Prime are quite persuasive. As Sarah was returned to her cell, her mind raced through possibilities. The Empire had clearly been watching her longer than she'd realized. Her cover was blown and her mission was compromised. But more importantly, her arrest would eventually reach the Human Colonial Authority, and they would have protocols for dealing with compromised agents. What worried her most was what the Empire might do to other human civilians if they believed there was a widespread espionage network. Her individual mission was less important than the safety of human colonies throughout the sector. The transport ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying her toward the heart of the Valtharian Empire. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to rest, knowing she would need all her strength for what was to come. In the darkness of her cell, she thought about her husband Marcus, serving somewhere in the depths of space with the human navy. He would be proud of her for not breaking under pressure, she told herself. She couldn't know that her arrest had triggered a chain of events that would shake the foundation of the Valtharian Empire. The aliens had made a fundamental error in their intelligence gathering. They knew Sarah Chen was married to a human naval officer, but they had failed to understand what that designation really meant. In their vast bureaucratic efficiency, they had classified Marcus Chen as a standard military technician based on his official records. They had no concept of what humans called Navy SEALs, no understanding of the specialized training and capabilities the designation implied. To the Valtharians, one human soldier was much like another. They were about to learn otherwise. Marcus Chen received the encrypted message while his team was conducting a reconnaissance mission in the Outer Rim territories. The communication came through official channels, marked with the highest priority encryption that the Human Colonial Authority used only for critical intelligence matters. The message was brief and devastating. Agent Sarah Chen, compromised. Captured by Valtharian Imperial forces. Transport to Valthus Prime confirmed. Assume interrogation imminent. Marcus stared at the holographic display for a full 30 seconds before the implications hit him like a physical blow. Sarah wasn't just his wife of 8 years. She was one of the most valuable intelligence assets the Human Colonial Authority had placed in Valtharian space. Her research had provided crucial information about alien agricultural techniques, mineral extraction methods, and colonial administration practices. More importantly to Marcus, she was the woman who had bandaged his wounds after his first covert mission, who had waded through 3 years of deep space deployments without complaint, and who had never once asked him to choose between his duty and their marriage. Now the aliens had her. "Chief, you need to see this," called out Petty Officer Rodriguez from his monitoring station aboard their stealth reconnaissance ship. Marcus pocketed the message device and moved to Rodriguez's station. His team of 6 elite operatives looked up expectantly. They had been together for 4 years, conducting missions that officially didn't exist in parts of the galaxy that human civilians had never heard of. "What is it, Rodriguez?" "Intercepted Valtharian military communications, sir. They're bragging about capturing a high-value human spy. The transmissions mention interrogation protocols and something about making an example." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. The Valtharians were notorious for their enhanced interrogation techniques. They had perfected methods of extracting information that left their subjects alive but fundamentally broken. "Sir," Lieutenant Jackson spoke up from the pilot station, "we're currently 3 days from the nearest human outpost. Do we abort the mission and report back?" Marcus looked at his team. These were men who had followed him through impossible situations. They had infiltrated alien installations, rescued human prisoners from slave markets, and conducted sabotage operations deep behind enemy lines. Each of them was trained to operate independently for months without support. They were also human beings who understood that sometimes the mission parameters changed. "Gather around," Marcus said quietly. The 6 men assembled in the ship's small common area. Marcus had served with each of them long enough to trust them with his life. Sergeant Thompson, the team's demolitions expert, had saved Marcus's life on Europa Station. Corpsman Williams had patched up half the team after their disastrous mission to the Centauri mining colony. They weren't just soldiers under his command. They were his brothers. "The situation has become personal," Marcus began. "The spy the Valtharians captured is my wife." The team exchanged glances but remained silent. In their line of work, personal connections were both a liability and a source of strength. "I'm not ordering any of you to participate in what I'm planning. This will not be an official mission. There will be no backup, no extraction team, and no recognition if we succeed. If we're captured, the human colonial authority will disavow all knowledge of our actions. Thompson leaned forward. What exactly are you planning, Chief? Marcus activated the ship's holographic display system, bringing up a three-dimensional map of the Veltharian Empire's core worlds. Velthus Prime glowed red at the center, surrounded by defensive installations and patrol routes. Velthus Prime is the most heavily defended world in the Empire. It's where they keep their most valuable prisoners and conduct their most sensitive research. The planet has orbital defense platforms, a permanent fleet presence, and ground-based installations that have never been successfully infiltrated. So it's impossible, Rodriguez said matter-of-factly. For a conventional military operation, yes. For 6 humans with the right equipment and complete disregard for their own safety, maybe not. Marcus highlighted several points on the display. The Veltharians have one critical weakness. They think like an empire. They plan for large-scale attacks, fleet engagements, and conventional military strategies. They don't plan for 6 individuals with advanced stealth technology and a willingness to do whatever it takes. Williams studied the tactical display. The prison facility is here in the planetary capital. Intelligence suggests it's built into a mountain complex with multiple levels of security. Correct. And according to our files, they've never had a successful escape attempt. The facility has held prisoners from dozens of different species over the past century. But they've never held humans before, Jackson said, beginning to understand. Exactly. They don't know what we're capable of when we're properly motivated. Marcus looked at each member of his team in turn. I'm asking you to volunteer for a mission that will likely result in our deaths. We'll be operating without authorization, without backup, and without any chance of official rescue if things go wrong. The only reason to do this is because it's the right thing to do. Thompson was the first to speak. Sarah patched me up after the Europa Station job. She never asked questions, never complained about the blood on her kitchen table. I'm in, Rodriguez nodded. My sister works the colony worlds. If the Empire starts cracking down on human civilians because they think we're all spies, she could be next. We need to send a message. One by one, each member of the team volunteered. They understood the risks, and they understood that this mission would change everything. If they succeeded in penetrating the Empire's most secure facility and rescuing a prisoner, it would force the Veltharians to reassess their understanding of human capabilities. If they failed, they would die as traitors and outlaws. All right then, Marcus said. Let's plan a prison break. The next 18 hours were spent in intensive preparation. They modified their equipment, studied intelligence reports, and planned contingencies for scenarios that grew more unlikely by the hour. Marcus found himself thinking about Sarah's calm professionalism, her ability to blend into alien societies, and her unwavering belief that humans could find their place in the galaxy through intelligence and determination rather than force. The irony wasn't lost on him that rescuing her would require more violence than she had ever contemplated in her worst nightmares, but the Veltharians had made a fundamental error in judgment. They had arrested a human intelligence operative without understanding the capabilities of human special forces. They were about to discover that humans, when properly motivated, could be far more dangerous than any alien species they had encountered. The stealth ship changed course toward Velthus Prime. Velthus Prime dominated the view screen as Marcus's team approached the heart of the Veltharian Empire. The planet was a testament to alien engineering, its surface covered with gleaming spires that stretched into the atmosphere. Orbital defense. Platforms hung in perfect geometric formations, their weapons arrays tracking every vessel that entered the system. Passive scanners are picking up over 200 Imperial ships in system, Rodriguez reported quietly. This is definitely the most heavily defended location in known space. Marcus studied the tactical display while his team ran final equipment checks. Their stealth ship was a marvel of human engineering, incorporating technology adapted from a dozen different alien species. It could evade most detection systems, but the concentration of sensors around Velthus Prime was unlike anything they had encountered. Remember, we have one advantage, Marcus told his team. They're looking for an invasion fleet or a large-scale attack. Nobody expects 6 humans in a single ship to attempt what we're about to do. The plan was elegantly simple in concept and terrifyingly complex in execution. They would use the ship's stealth capabilities to reach the planet's surface, infiltrate the detention facility, locate Sarah, and extract her before the Empire could mobilize its massive security apparatus. The reality was that every step of the plan required split-second timing and perfect execution. A single mistake would result in their capture or death, and likely trigger a war between humanity and the Valtharian Empire. Entering the outer sensor perimeter now, Jackson reported from the pilot station. The ship's stealth systems engaged, fully bending light and electromagnetic radiation around their hull. To any external observer, they would appear to be nothing more than cosmic dust drifting through space. The technology was so advanced that even human scientists didn't fully understand how it worked. They had acquired it during a raid on a derelict alien vessel 2 years earlier. The ship had belonged to a species that had vanished centuries ago, leaving behind only ruins and fragments of technology that suggested capabilities far beyond current galactic civilization. Marcus often wondered if humanity's greatest advantage in the galaxy wasn't their military prowess or their adaptability, but their willingness to learn from anyone and everyone. While other species dismissed the ruins of extinct civilizations as worthless relics, humans studied them, reverse-engineered them, and incorporated the useful pieces into their own technology. Approaching the planetary defense grid, Jackson announced. The orbital platforms were massive structures, each one capable of destroying a battle fleet. Energy weapons, missile launchers, and sensor arrays bristled from their surfaces. Between them, patrol ships moved in predetermined patterns, their crews alert for any sign of intrusion. Marcus watched the display as their ships slipped between the patrol routes, threading a path that existed only in the computer's calculations. A single sensor ping, one moment of detection, and the entire Imperial fleet would converge on their position. "We're through the outer perimeter," Jackson whispered, as if speaking too loudly might alert the enemy. The planet's surface grew larger on the view screen. Massive cities spread across the continents, connected by transportation networks that pulsed with constant movement. At the center of the largest continent, the Imperial capital rose from the landscape like a geometric mountain. "Detention facility is located here," Marcus indicated on the tactical display. Built into Mount Thexus, approximately 12 kilometers from the city center, the complex extends deep underground with the most secure levels housing political prisoners and high-value intelligence assets. Thompson studied the mountain's profile. Natural rock formation provides excellent protection against orbital bombardment. The Valtharians chose their location well, which is why nobody has ever broken anyone out of there, Williams added. Marcus smiled grimly. Nobody human has ever tried. The descent through the planet's atmosphere required navigating between air defense systems that could track objects as small as meteorites. Jackson piloted the ship with surgical precision, following a flight path that took advantage of natural atmospheric disturbances and electromagnetic interference from the planet's industrial centers. They landed in a remote valley 50 kilometers from the capital, using the ship's camouflage systems to blend into the rocky terrain. To any passing patrol, they would appear to be nothing more than an unusual rock formation. "Time to insertion. 6 hours," Marcus announced as the team prepared their gear. Each man carried equipment specifically chosen for this mission. Advanced body armor that could stop most alien weapons, stealth generators that would make them nearly invisible to electronic surveillance, and weapons designed for close-quarters combat in confined spaces. They also carried something the Valtharians had never encountered: human determination fueled by personal motivation. Marcus wasn't just rescuing a valuable intelligence asset. He was rescuing his wife. Thompson wasn't just following orders. He was repaying a debt to the woman who had saved his life. Each member of the team had personal reasons for being there. "Intelligence suggests the facility has 6 levels," Marcus briefed his team as they made final preparations. Administrative, offices on the upper levels, general population in the middle levels, and high-security detention on the lower levels. Sarah will be held somewhere in the bottom 3 levels. "Guard rotation schedules?" Rodriguez asked. "Every 8 hours with overlapping shifts during peak periods. The Valtharians are methodical about security, which works to our advantage. Predictable patterns can be exploited." Williams checked his medical equipment. "What about extraction? Even if we find her, how do we get out of a mountain fortress?" Marcus smiled. "That's where Thompson's expertise comes in. The demolitions expert patted his equipment pack. Sometimes the most effective exit strategy is making your own door. As evening fell on Valthus Prime, the team moved out across the alien landscape. The planet's 3 moons cast strange shadows across the terrain, creating an otherworldly environment that reminded them how far they were from home. They moved in single file, using terrain features to avoid detection. Their stealth generators made them nearly invisible, but the technology wasn't perfect. A careful observer might notice the slight distortion in the air, the way shadows fell incorrectly, or the subtle displacement of dust and vegetation. The Imperial Detention Facility loomed ahead, its bulk carved directly into the mountain. Guard towers rose from the rock face, their searchlights sweeping the approaches in regular patterns. The main entrance was a heavily fortified gateway that looked capable of withstanding a direct assault by armored vehicles. Just like the intelligence reports described, Marcus whispered into his communications unit. They established an observation post in the rocks overlooking the facility and spent 2 hours documenting guard movements, shift changes, and security protocols. The Valtharians were thorough and professional, but they were also predictable. There, Rodriguez pointed to a maintenance access on the facility's north face. Service entrance for environmental systems. Minimal security because it's considered too small for a meaningful breach. Perfect for 6 humans, Jackson observed. Marcus checked his chronometer. Inside that mountain, Sarah was enduring interrogation by aliens who had perfected the art of extracting information from unwilling subjects. Every minute they delayed increased the chance that she would be broken, or worse, that the Empire would decide she was too dangerous to keep alive. "Move out," he commanded. The real mission was about to begin. 6 elite human operatives were about to attempt something no one in galactic history had ever accomplished: a successful escape from the Empire's most secure detention facility. They were about to teach the Valtharians that humans, when properly motivated, were capable of achieving the impossible. The maintenance access tunnel was barely wide enough for a human to crawl through, which explained why the Valtharians considered it a minor security concern. Their own physiology made passage through such confined spaces nearly impossible, and they had never encountered a species willing to attempt infiltration through such an uncomfortable route. Marcus led the way, his enhanced vision systems mapping the tunnel's layout in real time. Behind him, his team moved with practiced silence, their equipment secured to prevent any sound that might alert the facility's sensors. The tunnel stretched for nearly 2 kilometers through solid rock, following the mountain's natural fissures and connecting to various environmental systems throughout the complex. Ancient ventilation shafts, power conduits, and water recycling systems created a maze of passages that the facility's original designers had intended to be inaccessible to intruders. Environmental scanners are showing multiple life forms ahead, Williams whispered through their communication link. Large concentration in what appears to be the central processing area. Marcus consulted his tactical display. According to intelligence reports, the facility's central processing area served as both an administrative hub and a monitoring station for the entire complex. If they could access the facility's computer systems from there, they could locate Sarah and identify the most efficient extraction route. They emerged from the tunnel into a maintenance chamber filled with humming machinery. The air was thick with the ozone smell of alien technology and the subtle vibrations of massive air circulation systems. Overhead, status lights blinked in patterns that indicated normal operations throughout the facility. "Thompson, Rodriguez, secure the perimeter," Marcus ordered quietly. "Williams, Jackson, interface with the computer systems. I want prisoner locations, guard rotations, and facility schematics." The team moved with choreographed precision. Thompson and Rodriguez positioned themselves to watch the chamber's access points, while Williams began connecting human interface equipment to the alien computer systems. The technology gap between species made such connections challenging, but human adaptability and reverse-engineered alien components allowed limited access to most systems. "I'm in," Williams reported after several tense minutes, downloading facility schematics and prisoner databases. The holographic display showed the detention facility's true scale. 6 levels extended deep into the mountain, with the lower levels containing isolation cells designed for the Empire's most dangerous prisoners. Environmental systems, security checkpoints, and guard stations created multiple layers of protection, around the high-security areas. Found her, Jackson announced quietly. Detention level 5, isolation cell designation Theta 7. According to the records, she's scheduled for enhanced interrogation in 4 hours. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Enhanced interrogation was the Empire's euphemism for torture techniques that left subjects alive but psychologically destroyed. They had 4 hours to reach Sarah before the Valtharians began breaking her mind systematically. Guard deployment shows standard rotation with elevated security on levels 4 and 5, Rodriguez reported, studying the tactical data. Approximately 40 guards in the facility, with 10 assigned to high security levels. The numbers were manageable for a conventional military operation, but stealth remained their primary advantage. Once they were detected, the facility's automated systems would seal all access points and flood the area with additional security forces from the nearby garrison. Extraction route? Marcus asked. Thompson smiled grimly. I've been studying the facility's structural engineering. The detention levels are carved from solid rock, but the upper levels use prefabricated construction. A carefully placed charge could create an exit route through the north face. That would also alert every Imperial force on the planet, Williams pointed out. By the time they respond, we'll be back at the ship in braking atmosphere, Thompson replied. Sometimes the direct approach is the most effective. Marcus considered their options. The infiltration had succeeded beyond expectations, but the extraction would require split-second timing and considerable luck. They had achieved the impossible by reaching this point. Now they had to achieve it again by getting out alive. All right, here's the plan. Thompson and Rodriguez will place charges on levels 1 through 3 while Williams and I locate. Sarah, Jackson will maintain our exit route and monitor Imperial communications for any signs of detection. The team split up, moving through the facility's service corridors with ghost-like silence. Marcus and Williams descended through the maintenance levels, using their knowledge of alien architecture to avoid security sensors and patrol routes. Level 5 was different from the upper areas. The walls were smoother, the lighting dimmer, and the air carried a subtle chemical tang that suggested advanced life support systems. This was where the Empire kept prisoners they intended to break rather than execute. Theta 7 is 2 corridors ahead, Williams whispered, checking his tactical display. They moved past cells containing beings from dozens of different species. Political prisoners, captured military officers, and suspected spies sat in darkness behind energy barriers that hummed with lethal force. Many showed signs of the Empire's enhanced interrogation techniques. Sarah's cell was at the end of a corridor guarded by 2 Valtharian soldiers. The aliens stood motionless at their posts, their compound eyes scanning for any sign of disturbance. Their weapons were charged and ready, and their armor showed the distinctive markings of elite Imperial guards. Marcus studied the guards through his scope. The Valtharians were professional soldiers with decades of experience. Under normal circumstances, they would be formidable opponents. But these weren't normal circumstances. He signaled to Williams, who moved into position on the opposite side of the corridor. They had practiced this maneuver countless times during their years of service together. Silent elimination of sentries required perfect coordination and absolute commitment. Marcus checked his chronometer. In 3 hours and 12 minutes, Sarah would be taken to the facility's enhanced interrogation chamber. In 6 hours, Thompson's charges would detonate and create their exit route. Everything depended on maintaining the element of surprise for just a few more minutes. He activated his stealth generator and moved toward the guards. The technology made him nearly invisible, but it wasn't perfect. A trained observer might notice the subtle distortion in the air, the way light bent around his form, or the slight displacement of dust on the floor. The first guard never had a chance to raise an alarm. Marcus's blade found the gap in his armor with surgical precision, and the alien collapsed silently to the floor. The second guard turned at the sound, but Williams was already behind him. Within seconds, both guards were neutralized and the corridor was secure. Marcus approached Sarah's cell and deactivated his stealth generator. She looked up from where she sat against the far wall, and for a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracked. "Marcus," she whispered. "How did you—" "Tell me later," he said, working to disable the energy barrier. "Right now, we need to get you out of here." The cell's locking mechanism was alien technology, but human engineering had always excelled at bypassing security systems. Within minutes, the barrier flickered and died. Sarah stepped out of the cell and into her husband's arms. For just a moment, they allowed themselves to embrace. Two humans alone in the heart of an alien empire. "Can you move?" Marcus asked quietly. "I'm fine. They haven't started the real interrogation yet." "Good, because we have a long way to go and it's about to get very loud." Above them, Thompson's charges were counting down to detonation. In a few minutes, the Veltharian Empire would learn what happened when humans decided that stealth was no longer necessary. The first explosion shattered the mountain's silence at exactly 0347 local time. Thompson's charges detonated in sequence, each blast calculated to weaken specific structural points without bringing down the entire facility. The rumble echoed through the stone corridors like thunder, and emergency lighting bathed everything in crimson. Alarms began wailing throughout the complex, their alien harmonics creating a disorienting cacophony that was meant to confuse intruders and alert every guard in the facility. Emergency blast doors slammed shut, sealing off sections of the complex according to protocols designed to contain any escape attempt. Marcus and Sarah moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency. Years of marriage had taught them to work together seamlessly, and Sarah's intelligence training made her an asset rather than a liability during the extraction. Secondary charges in 30 seconds. Marcus's communication unit crackled with Thompson's voice. They were climbing through maintenance shafts toward the facility's upper levels when the second series of explosions rocked the mountain. These charges were larger, designed to create actual breaches in the facility's outer walls. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling, and the air filled with the acrid smell of pulverized rock and burning metal. "They're adapting faster than expected," Williams reported over the communication network. "Security teams are converging on our position from multiple directions. The Veltharians might not have expected human infiltrators, but they were professionals. Once they realized the facility was under attack, they responded with military efficiency. Guard units sealed off access routes, established checkpoint positions, and began systematic sweeps of every level." Marcus and Sarah reached the third level to find Rodriguez engaged in a firefight with Imperial guards. The alien soldiers had taken cover behind security barriers and were laying down concentrated fire with weapons that could punch through human body armor. "How many?" Marcus called out as he and Sarah took cover behind a support pillar. 6 guards, possibly more," Rodriguez replied, pausing to reload his weapon. "They've sealed the main corridor and I can't get a clear shot at their position." Sarah studied the tactical situation with the analytical mind that had made her an excellent intelligence operative. The guards were positioned to control the main access route, but they were focused on the obvious threat. They weren't expecting flanking maneuvers from someone they considered a rescued prisoner. "Give me your sidearm," she said to Marcus. "Sarah, you're not trained for—" "I've been studying Veltharian tactical doctrine for 5 years," she interrupted. "I know how they think, how they deploy, and what they're not expecting." Marcus hesitated for a moment, then handed her the weapon. Sarah checked the charge level and safety systems with the familiarity of someone who had spent years around military equipment. She disappeared into the facility's maze of service corridors while Marcus and Rodriguez maintained suppressing fire. The guard's position was strong against direct assault, but it had been designed to repel attacks from specific directions. 2 minutes later, Sarah's voice came over the communication network. "I'm in position behind their lines. On my mark, increase your fire rate to draw their attention forward." The plan worked perfectly. As Marcus and Rodriguez intensified their assault, the Veltharian guards focused their attention on the obvious threat. They never saw Sarah emerge from the service corridor behind their position until it was too late. Her first shot disabled their portable shield generator. Her second and third shots found gaps in their armor that intelligence reports had identified as vulnerable points. The remaining guards fell in seconds, their training no match for the combination of human tactical flexibility and detailed knowledge of their weaknesses. "Impressive," Marcus said as they regrouped. Sarah smiled grimly. "Intelligence work isn't just about collecting information. Sometimes you have to apply it." They continued their ascent through the facility, fighting running battles with security teams that seemed to materialize from every corridor. Thompson's demolition work had created their primary exit route, but reaching it required getting through increasingly desperate Veltharian defenders. "Jackson, what's our status on external forces?" Marcus called over the communication network. Imperial garrison is mobilizing, but they're treating this as an internal security breach rather than an external attack. They haven't sealed off our extraction route yet. That was the crucial advantage of their approach. The Valtharians were responding to the crisis according to established protocols designed for prisoner riots or conventional infiltration attempts. They had no experience with human special operations tactics. Level 2 was a war zone. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across corridors filled with smoke and debris. Security teams had established defensive positions at every major intersection, turning the facility into a maze of killing fields. But Marcus's team had spent years perfecting techniques for fighting in confined spaces against superior numbers. They moved through the facility like ghosts, appearing from unexpected directions, striking hard, and disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. Thompson, Rodriguez, how are those exit charges coming? Marcus asked as they fought their way through another security checkpoint. 30 seconds to final detonation, Thompson replied. Hope everyone's ready for some fresh air. The last series of explosions was different from the others. Instead of the controlled demolition charges that had weakened internal structures, these were massive breaching charges designed to blow a hole through the mountain's north face. The blast was visible from orbit, a sudden flare of light and expanding debris that marked their escape route. Wind rushed through the facility as the mountain's carefully controlled atmosphere equalized with the outside air. Emergency systems struggled to maintain life support while massive fans tried to clear the smoke and dust. Marcus's team reached the breach point to find themselves looking out over a sheer drop of nearly 1,000 meters. The explosion had created a jagged opening in the rock face, but it hadn't provided a comfortable exit route. Please tell me you have a plan for this part, William said, looking down at the distant valley floor. Thompson smiled and activated a device he had been carrying in his equipment pack. 6 sets of rappelling gear materialized from compressed storage units, complete with cables rated for combat extraction operations. Always have a plan, he said. They secured the cables and prepared for the descent, but the sound of approaching aircraft made them hurry. Imperial security forces were finally responding with air support, and the distinctive whine of Valtharian attack craft echoed off the mountain walls. Go, 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 Marcus shouted over the noise. One by one, the team rappelled down the mountain face. Sarah went first, her intelligence training including basic extraction techniques. Marcus followed, then the rest of the team in rapid succession. The cables sang with tension as they descended through the night air. The lights of the Imperial capital spread out below them like a glowing map. Behind them, the detention facility burned. Emergency crews worked desperately to contain the damage while security teams swept the complex for any remaining intruders. They would find evidence of the most audacious prison break in galactic history, but they would find no trace of who had accomplished it. The attack craft arrived just as the last team member cleared the breach point. Energy beams lanced through the air where they had been moments before, scoring the rock face with molten lines. But the humans were already disappearing into the darkness below, moving too fast and too unpredictably for the alien pilots to track effectively. They hit the ground running, literally. Combat landing techniques absorbed the impact of their rapid descent, and within seconds they were moving across the rough terrain toward their extraction point. Behind them, searchlights swept the mountain face and aircraft circled like angry insects. Ship status? Marcus called out as they ran. Prepped and ready, Jackson replied. All systems nominal, stealth generators warming up. The Imperial forces were finally beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. This wasn't a prisoner riot or a simple security breach. Someone had penetrated the Empire's most secure facility, rescued a high-value prisoner, and escaped through methods that shouldn't have been possible. More aircraft appeared in the sky, their searchlights turning night into harsh day as they swept the valley floor. Ground vehicles raced along the mountain roads, disgorging troops at regular intervals to establish a perimeter around the facility. But they were looking for a large force, not 7 humans moving with stealth and precision through terrain they had studied for days. Marcus's team reached their ship without being detected, the camouflaged vessel appearing from the rocky landscape like a technological mirage. Everyone aboard, Marcus ordered. Jackson, get us airborne as soon as the hatch seals. The ship lifted off silently, its advanced propulsion systems making no sound as they climbed toward the stars. Below them, the Imperial search continued, but they were already beyond the reach of ground-based weapons. Stealth systems at maximum, Jackson reported. We should be invisible to their sensors. But as they climbed through the atmosphere, new contacts appeared on their displays. The asteroid field around Valthus Prime was a graveyard of ancient conflicts, filled with the twisted remains of warships from wars that had ended before humans had discovered fire. Chunks of metal and rock drifted in complex orbital patterns, creating a three-dimensional maze that challenged even the most skilled pilots. Jackson navigated through the debris with the precision of a surgeon, using their ship's advanced sensors to plot safe passages between obstacles that could crush their vessel instantly. Behind them, Imperial searchcraft probed the field's outer edges, but none dared venture into the hazardous region where gravitational anomalies and radiation storms made conventional navigation impossible. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Rodriguez reported quietly. Imperial patrol craft holding position at the field's perimeter. Marcus studied the tactical display. The Valtharians were being methodical, establishing a containment perimeter around every possible escape route. They weren't going to make the same mistake twice by underestimating their opponents. How long before they realize we're in here? Sarah asked. They already know, Williams replied, monitoring Imperial communications. But they also know this field has destroyed more ships than all their wars combined. They're waiting for us to make a mistake. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. The Valtharians had built their empire through patience and methodical planning. They were perfectly willing to wait for the humans to either surrender or die, trying to escape through the asteroid field. What they didn't understand was that humans had built their reputation on doing things that other species considered impossible. There, Jackson pointed to a section of the tactical display where ancient debris had formed a natural tunnel through the field. That passage leads to the outer system, but the radiation levels are off the charts. How off the charts? Marcus asked. Enough to kill an unprotected crew in about 10 minutes. Thompson checked their ship's specifications. Our shielding should handle it for 15 minutes, maybe 20 if we reroute power from non-essential systems. And how long to traverse the passage? Jackson ran the calculations. At maximum safe speed, about 18 minutes. The margin for error was razor thin, but it was their best option. The alternative was to surrender or attempt to fight their way through a fleet that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. Do it, Marcus decided. They entered the radiation tunnel at full speed, their ship's hull groaning under the stress of gravitational shears and electromagnetic bombardment. The passage was barely wide enough for their vessel, with jagged metal debris reaching out like grasping fingers. Radiation levels increasing, Williams reported, still within acceptable parameters but climbing fast. Halfway through the tunnel, their luck ran out. A massive piece of debris, probably the remains of an ancient battlecruiser, blocked their path. The obstruction was too large to go around and too solid to blast through. Reverse course? Jackson asked. No time, Marcus replied, studying the situation. Thompson, can you clear a path? The demolitions expert examined the obstacle through their sensors. Maybe, but the explosion could destabilize the entire tunnel. We might bring down half the asteroid field on top of us. Better than certain death from radiation poisoning. Thompson prepared his charges while the rest of the team secured for impact. The explosion, when it came, was carefully calculated to fragment the obstacle without triggering a cascade failure of the surrounding debris. It worked, but barely. The tunnel shuddered and contracted, showering them with smaller debris that rang against their hull like metallic rain. They squeezed through the gap with meters to spare, their ship's armor scarred but intact. Radiation levels critical, Williams announced. We need to clear this field in the next 3 minutes. They emerged from the tunnel to find themselves in open space, but their problems were far from over. Imperial ships had anticipated their route and positioned themselves to intercept any vessel emerging from the asteroid field. Multiple contacts, Rodriguez reported. Looks like a full squadron of Imperial cruisers. The ships were spread in a search pattern, their sensors sweeping space for any sign of the escaped prisoners. They were too far away to detect the human ship immediately, but that advantage wouldn't last long. Stealth systems are degraded from the radiation exposure, Jackson reported. We're not invisible anymore. Marcus made a command decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of trying to evade the Imperial ships, he ordered Jackson to set course directly toward them. Sir? Jackson asked uncertainly. They're expecting us to run, Marcus explained. They've positioned themselves to intercept an escaping vessel. They're not expecting us to attack. It was a desperate gambit, but it was based on sound tactical reasoning. The Imperial ships were configured for search and pursuit operations, not combat with an aggressive opponent. Their crews were focused on detection, not defense. The human ship accelerated toward the nearest cruiser, its damaged stealth systems flickering in and out of effectiveness. To the Imperial sensors, they would appear as an intermittent contact, possibly a piece of debris ejected from the asteroid field. "Weapons ready?" Thompson reported. "Wait for my command," Marcus ordered. They closed to within a few thousand kilometers before the Imperial ship realized what was happening. By then, it was too late for effective countermeasures. Thompson's precisely targeted missiles disabled the cruiser's engines and communications array without destroying the vessel entirely. The other Imperial ships reacted quickly, but they were still thinking defensively. They moved to assist their damaged comrade rather than pursuing the attackers, giving the humans precious time to escape. "Jump coordinates locked in," Jackson announced. "Take us home," Marcus ordered. The ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Valtharian Empire to contemplate what had just happened. 7 humans had penetrated their most secure facility, rescued a prisoner, and escaped from their most heavily defended system. More importantly, they had demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the Empire thought they knew about humanity. Sarah sat in the ship's common area, finally safe after her ordeal. Marcus sat beside her, both of them processing what they had accomplished and what it would mean for human-Valtharian relations. "They're going to demand explanations," Sarah said quietly. "Let them demand," Marcus replied. "They arrested the wrong woman. Now they know what happens when humans decide that diplomatic channels aren't sufficient." The rescue mission was over, but its implications were just beginning. The Valtharian Empire had learned that humans were capable of far more than anyone had suspected. They had discovered that underestimating humanity was a dangerous mistake. Across the galaxy, the story would spread. The impossible had become reality. 7 humans had accomplished what no military force had ever achieved. They had proven that when properly motivated, humans could overcome any obstacle, penetrate any defense, and achieve any objective. The Empire had arrested the wrong woman. Her husband was a Navy SEAL, and he had just taught them what that really meant. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same.